Hello, we are live. We are live. It is Dr. Ingrid, the Real Talk MD, and with me is Miss Tawana Peacock. She's a licensed social worker in the state of New York, and we are here tonight to talk about relationships during the pandemic. So we are here on our live, and I am just going to wait for a couple of more people to come in because we want to be able to address these questions and this not so easy topic, but it's a real topic, and it has to do with relationships, of course, of with yourself, but also with your kids, your partner, those work relationships, all the relationships that have just drastically been changed over the last year. How do we reestablish them? How do we maintain them? Do we sever some of these relationships? Are they stressful? Just how do we move forward? So the reason that I have Miss Peacock with me today, because she comes from a very unique background. She is a licensed social worker here in the state of New York, and she works in a prison system. And I know with the pandemic, with just the stresses that we all have endured over the last year, at times for myself, I can tell you that I have definitely felt like a prisoner in my own home and in my own life. And having COVID to contend with and those regulations to maintain our healthy states, we've been warned not to go around certain people. People were not allowed to gather for the holidays. And with this isolation and separation due to the pandemic, I wanted to get your expert opinion, be it that you do work with such a unique population. Again, we're talking about Ms. Tawana Peacock, who has joined me today, who's a licensed social worker, and she works for one of the largest, it's a federal prison?
State prison.
A state prison in New York. And we want to understand, if no one knows better than her, the conversation, some of the coping skills that some of the inmates who've been separated from their families, from their loved ones over an extended period of time. What have you learned? What can you share with us, with individuals who may be struggling? Because as I mentioned, it has been times where I have felt that I am a prisoner in my own home, in my own life, due to the pandemic and not being able to share space with loved ones. So welcome, Ms. Tawana Peacock. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, tonight we are talking about relationships during the pandemic. So I'm going to just allow a couple more people to join us. Please, by all means, the chat is on. Guys, please, women, guys, join us, send us questions, because what's going to keep this live going and make it very fruitful is being able to understand the standpoint and engage in the conversation from what your questions or your comments may bring to the table. So don't be shy. This is your chance to pick her brain for free and give this insight that we all need regarding relationships during the pandemic. So first, I would like to start, and I would like to thank you, first of all, for joining me tonight. Someone said, love you guys. We love you too. Hey. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you mind, please tell a little bit about yourself. You don't have to give too much transparency, but just to start, I would like to know, as being a clinical social worker in a state penitentiary in New York State, what have you learned? What have you heard? How do people cope with the separation? What have you learned professionally, personally over the last year? How can we deal with this? How can we reestablish these relationships, and how can we maintain them? And what relationships should we just get rid of? Should we love or should we leave?
Well, I thank you for inviting me. I, like everyone else, has gone through so many different range of emotions with throughout all of my personal relationships, my business relationships, my relationships with my clients, both in and out of the state prison setting. And I have found commonalities, which is something that I've found in general, working with people in general, whether it has been inmates. I've been working with the incarcerated population for 16 years now, both in the state system as well as the New York City system. And I found one of the very first things I discovered when I walked into a prison setting, a maximum security prison, and I was terrified initially, was that, wow, after like the first 2 weeks, I realized we are so much more alike than we are different.
In what way? I want to pin that. How are we so even though there is a distinction, because you have people, we're talking about individuals who are incarcerated in a state penitentiary, and here you are coming in to this penitentiary as a professional, and here you identify yourself as having similarities with these people who are behind bars. Tell me two things that you've been able to identify with them. That is very intriguing.
The feelings, the emotions, the outlook on life. A lot of times, what I have learned is that it's just circumstances that separates us all. Whether it's financial circumstances, whether it's familial relationships, and geographic situations and circumstances. Where you live, where you were raised, how you were raised. Those are the kinds of things that have made the difference in our lives. A lot of times some of the things that my guys will tell me that they thought about or that they think about are pretty much the same things that I think about. Pretty much the same needs that I have. I want to be loved. I want to be validated. I want to be cherished. I want to feel connected. I want to feel connected to my loved ones, to my family members. I feel disconnected when I'm not in communication with others. And so we have those same commonalities. A lot of it is, the circumstances that separate us. I've found, I often say that I've never heard of a white picket fence story. I've come across inmates that, had maybe their families had money or wealth or celebrity in some cases to a certain degree. But, it's mental illness and just abuse and substance use and substance abuse can play a big part in why people end up in the circumstances that they find themselves in. And in spite of everything else, it's those things that make us all, the same, that makes it very common for us. One thing that came out, that stuck out during this pandemic in terms of the need to feel connected in a world that's telling us to totally disconnect and totally separate, is communication. And one thing that the state did was it allowed the guys to have free phone calls during this time. Whereas before, every phone call they had to pay for. They had a system where the loved ones or whoever it is that wanted to communicate with the guys would have to set up an account. And they offer free phone calls for them. They offer, stamps, which is, for us isn't so much of a big deal nowadays because we're able to just, shoot a text or an email. But for the guys that are incarcerated, stamps are still very much a hot commodity because they send letters, they make pictures, they have artwork, they send and receive things all the time. So, them being able to be more in touch with their loved ones was crucial to them. Number one, to see how things are going. Number one, to see, to have that connection because they're fearful. If anything else, we were all very fearful that the prison setting was going to be like a petri dish for this pandemic, for this disease, for this infection. And it really turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought there was going to be a time where I'd have to be like on the Titanic and I'd be the violin players jumping off the ship at the end. But we really did a lot better than I think people thought we were going to do. And the guys stuck together more. They came together more as a community, and they embraced each other, and they embraced us as staff. They wore masks. Initially, we weren't allowed to wear masks, but they picked up on wearing masks. They were very careful about communication. They were more fearful of us because we got to leave, the civilians and the officers. We got to leave every day, but we also had the opportunity to bring stuff back in with us. So this was the first time that they were more afraid of us than we were, fearful of them. So it was different.
So I want to just bring this back full circle because it looks like we have some other people who have joined us and we're in the middle of what we are discussing. And of course, if you look across the screen, the topic is relationships on the pandemic. And we do have Miss Tawana Peacock, who is here with us. She is a licensed social worker at a New York State penitentiary. And she's just discussing the element of isolation. The reason that I chose her to be a part of this live is because who else would better know on a professional stance how people who are isolated for long periods of time, how do they survive? There is a survivor skill that's there. And so what I'm hearing from you is trying to allow different resources to come into play to increase that communication. That's number one, to the outside or to others who may not be in your immediate circle. Secondly, what I am hearing you say is even you're coming in each day, it's like there was almost a role reversal, right?
Mhm.
Between you and your clients there in the prison. Also coming into the home, say that you are a healthcare worker and you're in a hospital or you're going out and you're not working from home, and you're coming back into the home. At that point, I hear a lot of people saying they strip right down from with their clothes. They go right into the shower just to keep from contaminating. Like you said, you thought that your job, because of everybody being so in together, that actual prevalence of COVID would increase, and then it would be just like uncontrollable. So people in their households, they definitely are passing COVID along to each other. But how are they maintaining their relationships? You have also people who are working from home who have been married for 20 and 30 years. And this is the stories that I hear,
Mhm.
that they have just got to know their partner over the last year like never before, and they're not liking it. They're ready to leave,
Yeah.
just because of having to cohabitate with each other continuously, day in and day out. I mean, the kitchen table has turned into shipping and receiving.
Mhm.
The bathrooms are now the reception areas. The bedrooms are now the break rooms. Like, what do you do to keep those lines of communication, those relationships with your partner, with your kids? How do you keep the romance alive? What do we do in these times? And what I'm hearing you say is the most important thing. And people may say, well, duh, but it's not easy. Is to
Mhm.
communicate and be transparent.
Mhm.
Particularly, a lot of what I've seen with families where kids are involved, and say there are two parents, a two-parent household, maybe it's a one-parent household, not allowing the kid to feel that it's okay to have these feelings. Like you're saying, you're walking into the prison as a New York licensed social worker with these inmates, and you found that you have more of a commonality with them than a difference. And what separates you is that you're able to get back to the house. Your
Mhm.
situation is that you can come and go, and that's your job, but they're there to do a bid because of whatever issues. Plus, they have a mental illness on top of that.
Mhm.
Long story short, what you're saying is that you still identify with their feelings, and that they have emotions and they have thoughts. So I look at kids, and a lot of times we have missed tapping into how these kids feel.
Mhm.
They're very isolated because what we're talking about is relationships during the pandemic. Do you love? Do you leave? Yes, this is an adult conversation, but how can we have an adult conversation, particularly if we are parents or we're aunts or uncles or whatever, and not be able to look at our young people who are not able to communicate and say that, okay, let's just talk about the romantic aspect of relationships. No, relationships happen in everyday lives with the person that you encounter when you walk out of your house, the garbage man, your work relationships, your kids. So keeping that line of communication open. I know one thing for me, even when I go out, and I'm a very talky person. Sometimes my son is like, "Do you know them? Why are you talking?" I'm
Mhm.
like, "Because I'm talking. What's wrong with talking to people?"
Yeah.
And it's become very difficult because we got the mask on, right? So
Right.
even, and it's like with the mask on, my eyesight is getting bad, my hearing. It's like with the mask on, I can't hear like I used to. It's like I
Right.
can't see. But regardless, I understand the need for it. But how do we keep that connection? How do we keep that connection when we can't even touch each other for fear that we're going to contaminate ourselves with a deadly virus? What do we do? What do
Mhm.
we
Well, I know for my children, it was, I'm grateful that both of my girls they're 11 months apart. So they kind of keep each other company. But what I had to do, because I was the only one that was leaving my house when things got really bad, I was the only one who had to go to work. My husband was in a field, or is in a field that kind of just shut down during this pandemic. So everyone was home all day long, and I was so grateful to be able to to have to leave. But what I did was I tried, even when most things were closed down, I tried to tap into any way to kind of, give the kids a sense that they got a chance to get out. They weren't going to school, they were doing school online, the virtual thing. And I mean, there were times during the summer where if I needed milk or eggs, I would, I live in the city. I would come home, get them in the car, and we'd go to the Walmart and Fishkill. You know what I mean? Just something to get them out, let them see a different scenery, just walk around a little bit,
So normalizing, trying to be transparent, realistic, but normalizing it, particularly for kids, is what I'm hearing you say. And to allow them to still have a peace and say, okay, we may not have life like it was, but let's make the best of what we have. I want to turn and switch gears a little bit. Someone put a comment there, Miss Marsha Kelly's son. Hi, Marsha. She said COVID has leveled life. What do you mean by that, Marsha? Can we expand a little bit on that? And I hope that she's still with us and she can put in the comments what she means by that. But I want to talk from the position of isolation. For those people who say they are single, or they're not married, or there's not a partner, they don't have kids, or they have a loved one that's in an institution like a nursing home, or they've lost loved ones during this difficult time. What can they do?
I've been suggesting to a lot of my clients who are in that situation outside of the prison setting, support groups. I know a lot of people are resistant to the whole computer and Zoom thing, but the meetings and virtual meetings online, I have heard and have found personally it to be very helpful. Just feeling connected, whether it has to be on a phone screen or over a computer. If we are limited in our abilities and our chances to socialize, reaching out to groups of any sort, doing something different that things that you always said you wanted to do. This is your opportunity. You know what I mean? So not just kind of sitting and wallowing in your feelings, but kind of getting out there and seeing how other people are living and coping.
Absolutely. And of course, during difficult times, we all, and before we even started the live, Tawana, you and I were discussing how the expectation of females in the house, or even as mothers, how we're expected to hold it together. But what about the supports that we may need as a career woman, as a mother, as a wife, as a partner, as a sister, as an aunt? What supports do we have? And I want you, whoever's on this live, regardless of what your position may be in life, if you feel that you don't have the supports of the family members, or you're just struggling, you can always reach me at info@montgomerypsych.org, send an email, reach out to us. Again, I'm going to keep allowing that to tick across the screen, because sometimes you need that extra layer of support, right? You need that extra layer of validation. Sometimes we don't have the energy or the fight or the wherewithal to feed ourselves that self-love. You guys have probably been hearing me talk about all month, or that self-care or that self-validation. And you just need someone to just say, look, I know what you're going through. And that's one of the reasons that we are here on a live on Fire Friday night at 9:18 p.m. trying to just share and allow you to understand that we empathize. We understand that we're going through the same things you're going through, and what makes us different from anyone else that may be listening, and why are we on this side and you are on the opposite side, is circumstances and understanding how we can use the coping skills that we have. And again, if you feel that you don't have those coping skills, we are here to help you to garner those coping skills. You can reach out, you can ask questions, info@montgomerypsych.org, or just get on this live right now. I'm going to look and see if we have any other comments. Yes, Marsha said something back. Let me see what she's saying. Everyone's at home. It doesn't matter how much money. Sorry. Doesn't matter how much money you have or your designer clothes, etc. We're all finding what's more important. Family, friends, staying in touch. Absolutely. It's great to see you helping others. Thank you. I am helping others, but let me let y'all all in on a secret. I'm helping myself too, because the struggle is real. Yeah. The struggle is real. And like you said, getting back to those basics. I don't know the last time, I'm just going to be transparent. I don't know the last time I put on a pair of skates, but my son was like, he wanted a pair of skates for Christmas. I'm like, all right, get you a pair. I'm going to get me a pair too. Yeah, I know y'all probably have seen my Facebook where I bust my butt, but I still got out there. I still got out there and I did my thing. But what I'm saying is tapping into those old traditional, what allow other people to make it through what our forefathers and foremothers, what they did. It's that connection. It's that humanity. It's not the designer clothes, like Marsha's saying. It's not, how much money, because COVID does not discriminate. I don't care what you look like, what you got, what you don't got, what you think you is, what you think you ain't. COVID does not care. Everyone has been affected by this pandemic in the same manner. If you've met anyone that says anything differently, I would love to see that person, because that person is not human. And that's what we're talking about. We got some more comments here, so you can keep talking. A couple of more.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is, just using this time, to do silly things, play dress up. I ordered a pair of feathers off of Amazon. Who knew? And, sometimes you just put them on. You're going to be on Facebook Live, put your feathers on and just shake them a little bit. Just doing those fun things that actually a lot of us, we live in this fast-paced world where we're going to work, coming home, we're doing all these things. And before we know it, a whole year's gone by and we've done nothing just to indulge ourselves. This is kind of giving all of us a lot of time to slow down and just really appreciate a lot of things. And, just taking that time out is very, very important. Very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as I've said before, it is very difficult because COVID, as far as the science of it, the transmission, the incidence and the prevalence of COVID, we have to stay apart from each other. And I'm a very touchy person. I like to hug. I like to be all in your face. I like to talk. And that has been taken away, from me. So how do I connect? How do I connect? You said a lot of things as far as social media. Love those feathers. Put those feathers back on. Helene want to see those feathers. Hey, put them back on.
Get them in white too, girl.
Okay. Paula, COVID has really emphasized the importance of mental, physical, emotional, and social health. I believe this pandemic really made us appreciate the people and the little things in our lives. Absolutely. And I want to just while she's putting on her clothes, her name is Tawana Peacock, and she has on her feathers tonight. And we are here to entertain and also to educate on relationships during the pandemic. We're just here, y'all, to connect. And this is part of the connection. Understanding that you are not alone. Sometimes I have to catch myself, or I'll be talking to myself because it's just like me. But I have a lot of things going through my mind, and you will see me more using social media and using these platforms. And never before have I used them as much as I have, because I need to stay connected. I need people to understand that you are not alone. There's so much, traumatic things happening, and we all have been traumatized. I don't care what your title is. We have all been traumatized. And to have a person, to hear someone else normalize what you're going through, helps the relationships. Because a lot of times in relationships, I'm gonna escalate this up a little bit to a romantic relationship. A lot of times we take our work relationships, we take the other things in our lives, whether it's from family members, whether it's from just platonic friends, work, kids, and we throw all of that stuff into a romantic relationship. And sometimes it's very unfair because it's not our partners. It's just us having the inability to communicate in a transparent way of feeling that we can get that validation and support from our partners, particularly if you're a woman. I'm just going to be flat out, because sometimes men are not really emotionally equipped to handle all of the things that such strong women may carry. Someone love those. Hey, they are loving those feathers. Leave them on. Leave those feathers. You're rocking them. Yes, Peacock. Leave those feathers on. They're loving it, right?
Thank you.
Surely she's gonna begin to sing like a bird, but until we get to that point.
Do a patty on them.
Yeah, so let me introduce her again. Ms. Tawana Peacock is a New York State licensed clinical social worker. She works at Sing Sing Correctional Facility, which is a New York State penitentiary. And the reason I have her joining me tonight is, who would know best about isolation and feeling like a prisoner in your own home, other than a social worker that has worked over a decade with individuals who've been separated from their loved ones, separated from their community, separated from their life as they've known it before incarceration. How do they survive? So she's here just sharing how they get along, how do they survive. She's listed resources that now are into place, such as they're able now to talk to their families without having that financial burden. Also, there's a different level of support that's there. Also, she's mentioned about role reversals, how the inmates were more fearful of the staff bringing in COVID to them versus the staff being afraid of the dangers that the inmates, are displaying on a day-to-day basis. And so that role reversal also has happened a lot with now the work being in the home. As I mentioned, the kitchen table is now shipping and receiving. The bathroom, the bathtub, the toilet is now the reception area, and the bedroom is the break room. So what do we do? It is definitely role reversal. So she's talked a lot about the communication aspect of it, getting support, building the support, tapping into your emotional wellness. I cannot tell you enough how people, if never before, mental illness needs to be defaced completely. People need to see mental illness just as you go for your annual flu shot, just as you go to get your blood pressure checked, you go to your GYN to get your checked, go to get your teeth cleaned. You need to get a mental check every now and then. We all need that, whether it's from a girlfriend, whether it's from a partner, someone you trust, or you can, by all means, reach out to me at info@montgomerysite.org. I'll be more than happy to respond to you. We can chat a little bit, understand what you need, and be that extra level of support. So that's why we're here today. I got a couple of more comments coming in. Bedroom is the break room. Yes. I get many phone calls how friends and clients are feeling really down this month, especially those who are working from home. Very lonely being home all day. Human connection is a must. Absolutely. And life is so short. And life is so short. And in times where we feel that we can't get that connection from humans, and I'm going to have to go to church real quick because I got to do this. We have to tap into that supernatural relationship and have a spiritual relationship with yourself. Because if you can't find it in man, you have to be able to give it to yourself. If you can't get it from yourself, you got to get it from a higher power. And you mentioned substance abuse. You mentioned it in the context of, sometimes the prisoners or the inmates there, they come in with mental illnesses, there's substance abuse behind the charges that they may have gotten and the reason that they're there. But also during this pandemic, substance abuse has quadrupled. You don't hear about it, but as far as the research and looking at the incidence of opioid deaths, particularly in the state of Ohio, there have been so many opioid deaths because people have overdosed on heroin. People just don't know how to cope. And buying bottles of wine, being in your house, even when nothing was open, the liquor stores were open as an essential business here in New York State. It is just unbelievable. And substance abuse definitely can destroy those relationships. So what do you do when you have a loved one that's suffering from substance or addiction, or you're in relationships where it's problems because of the pandemic or their stress? Do you love or do you leave? That is the question. I'm going to let you go first because I have my own ending to that, and we're going to end this in about 2 minutes because I don't want to take up too much of people's time. Somebody say amen. Yes, hallelujah. Tabitha, thanks for joining us. So what do you say? During these difficult times, should we love or should we leave?
I would suggest, leaving is such a dramatic response. I would venture to say, I would guess that if you were at the point where we're talking about leaving, that these problems existed way prior to COVID. And this, just kind of sitting around with the same person or commiserating with this person now that they're going through this, probably highlights. I've heard friends say, I just hate the way he chews or the way they breathe. It's like, I never noticed that he breathes so loud. So it's going to definitely emphasize those those negative traits or those traits that irritate us. But I think making any kind of drastic situation would take a lot more, clarity and time and planning and everything like that. So I don't suggest, jumping ship until, maybe things have normalized and you've had a chance to see things normalize and you're not up under each other anymore and things like that. Everyone knows what they can handle, what they can't handle, but, keep in mind, we're all in the same hell, just in different holes.
Ooh.
So, yeah, a coworker told me that one day, and I just thought it was the best thing. It's like same hell, different hole. So I suggest you put a lot of thought. The same thing that you would do prior to the pandemic, putting thought, planning, saving, whatever it may take for you to make your exit. I think you, even more so now, you need to think about that before just kind of, making any hasty decisions.
All right. So let me tap on to something, because as you were talking, I was thinking the same thing. And here in the comments, Miss Marsha Sutton, Kelly Sutton, she stated that she has noticed the majority of police visits in her neighborhood are for domestic violence. So I knew that this was going to come up, because there has definitely been an increase in the prevalence and incidents of domesticated violence and assaults, because people are trapped in the house and they don't have these coping skills, or whatever the case may be, or maybe they were pre-existing, but now they're getting worse. So by no means are we giving any medical advice on this live, nor are we telling you to stay in an abusive relationship. If you know people that are in abusive relationships, it is best that they reach out to those local resources. I know there's a lot of things with the police and brutality, whatever, but police they have a duty to protect and serve in certain capacities. And I would say that if you're just a regular person, a neighbor, I would not get involved directly with it, but I would allow the individual to understand that there are resources available. There's several hotlines in whatever state that you may be in that you need to contact individuals. There's also apps on your phone for women and also for men, because not only are women in abusive relationships, men also are in emotional abusive or physical abusive relationships as well. So it goes back and forth, but also there's certain apps on the phone. There's certain passwords that you can call. So definitely allow and empower these people who, if you know of, that are in abusive relationships, to reach out to these support groups and these resources and these hotlines. By all means, please do not get directly involved in it. But yes, you are definitely right that the incidence of domestic violence has increased, and it is out there. The data shows that it has, and it probably will continue for some time, because we're talking about, economics. When you talk about financial burdens, when you talk about people not being employed, when you talk about, people not having purpose, or the mental illness is even more amped up because they can't get to the doctor or whatever the case may be, it is going to be there. Abuse is the only time to really run. Abuse, definitely. And you have to know how to run. And sometimes you just can't run and do it. Absolutely, Helene. And Marsha, thank you so much for doing that. I feel that too with the chewing. Sharon, what are you talking about?
I said that even the sound of someone chewing becomes annoying.
Oh, Sharon.
He's being honest. Hello.
Sharon. Okay, Sharon. Okay, so what do you do? Put in the comments, Sharon. What do you do when chewing becomes annoying? I guess that's what you're saying.
Don't cook what they can't chew.
Huh? So you're saying if somebody's chewing is a problem, it was a problem before the pandemic?
Yeah, well, you didn't notice it. We were moving too fast. Life was going on. We didn't have time to think about these things.
Okay, let's say she said it's true. Okay, so let's say, because I'm gonna be honest. My entire life, it has been flipped upside down for various reasons. However, okay, so I can agree, and I'm laughing, but I can agree. When you are tense, or your mind is someone else, and someone comes, and then you can hear every slurp, every inch of mastication. That means the chewing of it and the swallowing, and you just want to just like, what do you do? I'm gonna tell you what I do. I just play a song in my head,
Mm-hmm.
And Sharon said, yep. I just play a song in my head, and I just know that that person at that moment, this is where empathy comes in. I think a huge part also in relationships, you have to have empathy. Empathy means that you feel what the other person's feel. Not that you acknowledge what the other person feel, but you feel that feeling that that person has, and you can put yourself right there. So to have empathy and say, okay, this person's really chewing like a horse. Like I just I can't take it no more. But you can't run, you can't leave, and you damn sure shouldn't say, stop chewing. Know that that person is feeding their bodies, they're doing something they need to do, and they're enjoying it. So just tune it out and be like, okay, that they're satisfying themselves. I'm just gonna play a little tune in my head, and I'm just gonna get up with my little cup of coffee and go to the next room until they finish chewing.
Yep.
That's what you can do.
Humor works. Humor is key.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's humor.
Yeah. Or you can just like, I don't know. I just think really, I would just make like a beat to it in my head, like that's what I would do. And I just, just make a song out of it. And there, well, people eat kind of quick. So it'll be over in like 10 minutes. So hang in there. Hang in there. 10 minutes isn't worth letting 10 years of marriage go because he's chewing like a horse, Sharon. No, I'm just kidding. Hang in there. Hang in there. Little humor. So let's talk about really quickly the standpoint from being single. We've hit on the being a partner, being in an abusive relationship. What about the single people that are trying to meet other people? What about these kids and these young adults? Because socialization is part of developmental necessity, and they can't get to their friends. They can't socialize. Even before the pandemic, they act like they didn't know how to talk. So now everything is virtual. They're becoming even more mute. What do we do? How can they meet someone? How can they fall in love? Because part of a relationship, some people, regardless of whatever your gender, your preference may be, I'm not here to judge nor, condemn, but how do people connect with other people? I know definitely on social media, but how do you keep those boundaries and make sure that these relationships that are forming during the pandemic, during a time of desperation, are healthy relationships? And please, someone can in the comments, you can definitely share. How do you know a relationship is a healthy relationship in times of desperation? Because a lot of times what happens in human behavior, we call it cognitive behavior therapy. And the way that we get to the core of it is looking at how a person thinks, their emotions, and that is what precedes a certain behavior. So the question is, how do we know a relationship is a healthy relationship, whether we need to love or leave? That's number one, Ms. Peacock. And secondly, should we be meeting new people during this pandemic? Should we be getting to know them? Should we be falling in love with people during the pandemic? What's your expert advice?
Well, I think when it comes to this, I don't know that it should be any different than it normally is, quite honestly. I mean, people are meeting virtually. People are meeting, it's a different for you know what? For my generation, it would be totally different than for the current, the young people right now, because that's what they were kind of doing before COVID. You know what I mean? It's more intensified because that has almost seemed like the only way to meet, or the most exclusive. But I think you ask the same questions, you engage in the same conversations, you do the same reality checks. You may even get a better chance to communicate with someone because you aren't walking in the park and holding hands and there's these long lulls or whatever. You are just kind of there doing the whole interview thing throughout the relationships. I've known many people who have found and swear that they found their one during this pandemic, whether it's online groups, chat, Facebook, social media. It seems to be more of, more mainstream, that people are just meeting people. Even, some of the children are meeting up with other people from other schools, maybe from another class that they wouldn't have been a part of. And my girl's like, oh, I met Michael. I know we went to, we were in third grade together, but I never spoke to him. But he seems really intelligent now that he's on Zoom. You know what I mean? So, I find it's becoming the way to go. I don't see it as being so taboo anymore.
Ha 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 ha. So I think somebody is a mind reader, and her name is Marsha Kelly Sutton. Everything I'm thinking to say, she's like, boom, in the chat. So she states, before you get serious, you need to see a clean STD, HIV, and COVID test.
Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you also need to understand, and I've said this and I'm going to reiterate that if nothing sticks during this pandemic, we all have learned, we've been tested on our knowledge of transmission of, germs, microbiology, how we need, what we need to do, wash our hands, cover our mouths, things that we were taught, but we never paid attention to. More than ever, it is so important to understand your mental capacity, understanding you, yes, your mental capacity, and being transparent with yourself, true to yourself as to what you are able to handle. What you're not able to handle, that's the areas that you can work on with yourself or with a professional person, particularly before you get into a relationship. So what I am saying is, yes, the physical healthiness needs to be there if you're on the brink of starting a relationship during the pandemic, but definitely that emotional and that mental check absolutely needs to be there for yourself and also for that partner, because you have to understand that everyone is stressed. So, okay, getting these little inklings of what ticks this person off, or if this person is not a person that communicates, that may not be the right person for you. You're doing all of the communicating and this person doesn't want to communicate, or you feel that they're not too mentally stable. You have to have your eye open for that. But before you're able to do that, you have to understand what your mental capacities are and your emotional capacities are, and to get the support that you need before you enter into any relationship. I don't care what it is, because the way that I look at it, and it's a little different from how you look at it, Ms. Peacock. The way that I look at it during these times, it's almost like being in a lab, almost in what we call in vitro or in vivo, like in a test tube, where people are not in contact with the life that they normally would live. So they may not be really representing themselves as they would if it was not a pandemic. As Marsha Kelly Sutton just said, make sure that these people are clean physically, emotionally, spiritually. And a lot of times when we're acting out of desperation because we're so isolated, we can miss that. And it doesn't have to just be because you're a woman. It can be a man too, because you want to feel that connection. You can accept certain things you otherwise would not accept. So keeping those standards, keeping those boundaries, taking time for yourself, self-care, self-love is the epitome of any relationship during a pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, whatever. Having a relationship with yourself, first and foremost. This is the one time that I have gotten to know myself like never before. There's a lot of things I don't like that I'm working on, but there's a lot of strengths that I've had to pull upon that I'm like, wow, I didn't know that I was able to do that. And one of those things is trying to operate this social media and this computer, because I was not savvy enough to do that. But I'm able to at least turn it on and jump on here and say hi to some of you sometimes. So understanding the importance of self, even in a relationship. Let me give you a little secret, and Miss Peacock may disagree, but I think she'll agree. It is okay. It's okay to be selfish. Yeah, it's okay to be selfish. Create that space in your home. Create that time alone. Even if you're sitting out in your car, you just got to just take 5 minutes before you come into the house, so that you're not bringing COVID into the house, or you're not bringing attitude, or you're not bringing that contagion of emotion into the house that's going to disrupt the relationships, during the pandemic. That you're able to come as a whole person, you're able to come as a whole man, or a whole father, or a whole woman, or a whole mother, whatever it is. Even if you're fragmented inside, at least you can at least try to bring your best foot forward and to be there for other members of your family, but also to make sure that you're giving yourself the time and the space that you need to rejuvenate and to recover and to say, you know what, even if I am broken and I need extra support, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's okay. Again, you can reach me at info@montgomerysite.org. You see it ticking across the screen. I am so happy. Miss Peacock, if you want to add something else, again, we have here Miss Tawana Peacock. She's a licensed clinical social worker here at New York State Penitentiary, Sing Sing Correction Facility, located here in New York. It is a state penitentiary, and she's here bringing and dropping information. How do these isolated inmates survive? They have to do these long bids, and she's given us a lot of information. And namely, the main thing that she said is communication.
Mm-hmm.
Having that communication like never before.
Yep.
Like never before. And we have to teach our kids that. You know, I know a lot of them are on TikTok, a lot of them are doing virtual things, but at the end of the day, we're not going to be like this forever. But they need to understand that communication, whether it's written, whether it's verbal, and a lot of times communication can be nonverbal, that they are sending the right message and that others are hearing the message that they need others to hear so that they can take care of themselves. So we are talking about relationships during the pandemic. Again, I am Dr. Ingrid, and I'm a board certified psychiatrist in the state of New York, New Jersey, and California. And we're just here today, just sharing what we know. That's it. And just trying to get all of us through this pandemic in one piece. So again, you can reach me if you need to at info@montgomerysite.org. This is Ms. Tawana Peacock. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She also is part of the practice with me. So she practices with me, and we help each other to help the community. And we're here to rebuild, to restore, and also to rejuvenate the mind, body, and the spirit. So thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to leave with some parting words, Miss Peacock, with your beautiful, beautiful feathers on? Please give us some ending words. We've had so many great comments, and we've had people to join, and I love this. So if you're still on this live, please share this, like the live, but share it to other people, because people need to understand the importance of relationships. And sometimes people say, I don't need anyone. Well, everyone needs someone. I don't care who that person may be. And you may say, well, I don't have anyone. Well, if you don't have anyone, maybe you should just send me an email. You may need that extra layer of support during these difficult times. My heart goes out to the people who are struggling in Texas, who are struggling in their homes domestically, locally, in the community, globally. You know, there's just so many traumatic things happening that we need each other. We really, really need each other. So I'm going to let Miss Tawana Peacock lead us out. And yeah.
Well, I just feel, it's important now more than ever just to really take the time to, for those of us that are, blessed to have relationships, friends, family, just embrace them, just love them in whatever way that we can, leave little notes for your kids, especially those of us that are going out while our kids are staying in, or for those kids that are going out, put little notes, just let them know how important this time is, and give them value, for your friends, reach out to them. They might be struggling as well. They may not communicate it, or we all get so busy and caught up in what we're doing. Reach out to them. Today, I drove by one of my best friends that I've known for 44 years, and I drove by her on a major street. She didn't see me, and I just felt overwhelmed with emotion, like, oh my God, like somebody I normally would see 10 times a year or 20 times a year. I haven't seen her in like a year. Before I physically seen her or hugged her in a year. And so it's important to really, really be real in this moment, really just, in as much as we're going, oh my God, I can't believe this, a year of this, really embrace this moment and just, do things that you want to feel again, and hope that we never have to do this again.
Absolutely. And I'm going to just add my 2 cents, because y'all know I talk a lot, but I'm just hearing, and as you talk, before Marsha maybe puts in the comments, because she's like a mind reader. She said 44 years later, you are gorgeous. Yes, she is, Tashina.
I'll be 49 next month.
And she's a liar. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
She's great, right?
49-year-old, yeah.
So Marsha says, amen. She says, yes. Tashina's like, yes. I I want to say one thing, and the person and people that's on this live need to hear this. What Ms. Peacock is saying is reaching out. There is nothing wrong with saying that you need help or reaching out to the people that you know that have your back. We oftentimes we have the fear of rejection. Nobody wants to feel rejected, but I want you to unapologetically be who you are. Be as transparent as you can safely. What I mean by that is you're not just going to go and be blasting all your business to people who may not be in your best interest, but for people that are in your corner that you know that have been there for you, or maybe you're not too sure, but you just need that extra layer of support. You need to unapologetically be as transparent and not to fear rejection. Rolling up on people that you haven't seen for years just to check on them. Even if they don't respond, you've done your part. You understand? So life is so short. Life is so short. I can tell you last week, I was informed of 6 people that passed away. 6 people in 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may say, well, you're a doctor, but no, these are people that I personally knew. It was not professional people at all. This is people that I personally knew. So life is too short. When it comes to relationships, there's no right or wrong. There's no answer to loving or leaving. It's about communication. And from the communication aspect of it, then you determine how that relationship will look during the pandemic. But most of all, you got to know yourself, love yourself, have that self-worth, that self-care, and that self-love so that you're able to transcend that love, transcend whatever that message is that's meant for someone else to establish, build, and maintain these relationships during the pandemic. And so we would just want to thank Ms. Peacock so much for joining us on her beautiful sweater and giving us her professional opinion, also her personal opinion as a mother, as a wife, as a beautiful woman of her caliber, how she maintains her work life. She's also furthering her career, and she's holding her family down. So she shared with us all of these views, and we thank you so, so much. There's another comment that's in this, and I want to grab it really quickly. Tashina says, thanks. Yes. Forget rejection.
Yeah.
The only rejection that we're going to have at the end of this life is death. Other than that, there's no such thing as rejection, because let me tell you, what's the worst thing that can happen when you reach out to someone is they say no, and a no has never killed anyone. That's what my grandmother has always taught me. No has never killed a soul. Mm-hmm. A lot of times no's can turn to yeses and yeses can turn to no's, but you will never know until you open your mouth, because a closed mouth
does not get fed.
And so here we are talking about relationships, healthy relationships, and feeding the mind, body, and soul. So open your mouth, open your heart, and do what you need to do for yourself so that you can do for others. But it hurts. Amen. It does hurt. But guess what? Anything that hurts is temporary. There's a such thing as chronic illnesses or chronic pain or emotional pain. But yes, things do hurt in life when there's rejection on the table or things don't go our way. But during these troubled times, I'll take rejection any day. Mm-hmm. It's my personal opinion. So if you can't get over the hurt, you know how to reach me, info@montgomerypsych.org. Rejection is God's protection. Amen. Mm-hmm. Yep. Amen. Because God's will is his will and it's his perfect will. And if we are rejected from something, then it wasn't meant for us. It's God's way of protecting us from further hurt. So Marsha, you just on fire tonight, girl. So thank you. We should do this more often. So we're going to end now. It's been almost an hour. We said that we were going to go 30 minutes, but I know my mouth is so big, I just can't stop talking. So I'm going to stop talking because Ms. Peacock has her family. I have my family to attend to. And I thank each and every one of you for joining us on this Friday night, February the 19th, to talk about relationships during the pandemic. Again, I'm Dr. Ingrid, the Real Talk MD. I'm a board certified psychiatrist in the states of New York, New Jersey, and California. And I have here with me Miss Tawana Peacock. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and she works for a New York State penitentiary, which is Sing Sing. And who would know more about isolation coming from a professional standpoint than her dealing with these inmates for over a decade, digging in, and she refuses to leave because she loves what she does. So again, we are here again, just sharing what we feel in our hearts, what we know, what we've been taught by science, by trade, but just to humanize each other and to let you know that it is okay. And the main relationship that I need you to work on is the relationship with yourself. And if you believe in a higher power, get it right with the man above. And he will make that determination for you, whether you love or leave. But if it's an abusive relationship, by all means, there are local resources out there. We're not telling you to stay in relationships that are abusive, nor are we giving any medical advice tonight. If you have any information or you want to share anything or ask any questions, you can reach me at info@montgomerysite.org, and we are going to end. So everyone have a beautiful evening, a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I know this is not Freestyle Friday, but guess what, y'all? Somebody gonna say it. We made it to another Friday. We
Amen.
made it. Amen, amen, and good night. Thank y'all so much. Bye.
Bye.